Hey, everybody. It's Dan and Dan back at it again. Thank you for being here. And Dan is going to come right back. We're doing a little experiment. Device is not connected.
Sorry. Hello.
Hello. Welcome back.
Now I'm going to click on stream this to your audience again and see if
Okay.
YouTube channel. StreamYard. I already have, but okay, continue.
Hi, ho, Kevin. Hi, Jordan. John 17. In what sense was Jesus distinct from the Father before creation? So if we assume that the author of John 17 is the composer of the Logos hymn at the beginning of John, then it creates some interesting issues there. But the idea would seem to be that the Logos theology is this idea that the Logos is God's rationality, and then God forms a statement, something to articulate, and articulates it, and then sends it out into the world, and that is the Logos prophorikos, and that is what is incarnated to become Jesus. And so would seem that God is providing that expressed word with that glory and everything like that. But I tend to be of the opinion that the author of John has a somewhat different Christology and has just included the Logos hymn at the beginning of the gospel and treats Jesus as more of a kind of the Son of Man figure who is endowed with this stuff in either some pre-existence or at birth or something like that. And so is given the name and given the glory and that kind of thing. And Daniel 7 and the Son of Man tradition in Enoch is probably the setting for that in the mind of the author. But how are we doing, Dan?
I'm sorry. It says I requested streaming access today, and it will be available in 23 hours and 59 minutes. So
okay,
we're just streaming on your thing, I guess.
All right, we're gonna do it live.
Fine, we're doing it live. So okay, cancel. I'm going to not be in the process of adding a destination, and we'll dry run this thing before we try again.
Yeah, we'll do it another time when we can when all the accounts are square. And yeah.
Anyway, what up, nerds? How's everybody doing?
Nerdy.
Yeah.
Let's see. And I try to take care of my. I know a lot of folks will. A lot of live streams I join, they do their thing, and then for the last like 30 minutes, they're like, "All right, we're gonna do some super chats." I kind of try to catch them on the fly because they're gonna stack up pretty quick.
They're gonna stack up. Well, I'm not. I can't see any of that, so it's.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go boop.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for the question. Ironic that Catholics take this as my body / blood literally, but many Protestants do not. What did the authors and first century Christians believe? I tend to be of the opinion that they probably did not take it very literally, that this was figurative. And some things that are figurative get reinterpreted as literal by folks, and we see that anciently and today. So, yeah, I don't think the authors of the Gospels, I think mainly John, I don't think they had this, the idea of the I was reading some Calvin and Hobbes earlier, and so all I got in my head is transmogrification, but that's not the word.
Oh, you're talking about well, now you said the wrong word. Now I can't think of it.
Yeah, by the process by which the host becomes the actual flesh and blood of Jesus. I don't think they had that in mind at all.
It is a transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
they love that Latin, don't they?
I mean, it's what it like. I'm just gonna have a conversation here. You seem to be plowing through stuff, but I want to chat. So like. It seems like if there's one thing that we've learned from doing the Data Over Dogma podcast, it is taking almost anything literally from the Bible is probably a mistake. Like the more literal you are, literal minded you are, probably the further you are from correct, in my estimation.
Yeah, I think that's a good rule of thumb. That's why you need to take it literarily, is what I
That's right.
always say.
That's
Yes.
right.
Daryl asks a wonderful question. What is a good resource to understand the evolution of the concept of God in human history? There's a lot of good stuff in there, but I will recommend. I'll recommend 3 books, and I'll start with the. Let me just pull them up real quick, so I can throw them on the screen so people can see the covers.
Ooh.
Okay, that one doesn't have a cover, but or at least the PDF that I have doesn't have a cover. But within the cognitive science of religion, they've been working on this for a long time, and there are a lot of great insights. But that might be the next book I do, the next trade volume I do. Thinking of talking about how the concept of God has changed now, not throughout human history, but throughout the Bible, from the earliest layers of the Bible to the latest layers of the Bible, but beginning before the Bible and how God concepts are developed to begin with. Okay, so boop. Acrobat Pro is really
it's not
really
doing
annoying me. No, it's really annoying me. All right, there we go. Share this window. So this is a good one. That's not the actual title page. Here's the actual title page: Minds and Gods: The Cognitive Foundations of Religion. This is a somewhat older. It's from 2006, almost 20 years old now, but talks about the cognitive foundation of development of God concepts. Ilka Pisianen's book, Supernatural Agents: Why We Believe in Souls, Gods, and Buddhas, it more directly addresses the idea of God concepts and where they come from. That's a good one. And then Aranor Science book, Big Gods: How Religion Transformed Cooperation and Conflict, is the articulation of this theoretical framework about what he calls moralizing gods that become patron deities over large nations, and talks a lot about how the function of moralizing gods as people who can covertly monitor behavior, people who can punish bad behavior, entities that can do all that kind of stuff, help societies and civilizations grow larger and more complex without cooperation and things like that breaking down. So
awesome.
a handful of good text there.
Hey, can I interrupt the answering of questions for a little bit? Because like one of the whole points of me invading your live,
yes,
is that I want to get word out about our tour, and
our tour.
I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about the first leg. I want to announce, though, it is not ticket sales are not available yet because I ran into some snags as I was working on it today.
For the second leg?
For the second leg.
Right. Okay.
Tickets are available now and easy to get if you go to Indiegogo. Are we able to put that somewhere?
I'm gonna drop it in the chat.
The link.
I'm gonna drop a leg. Yes.
Just dump a leg. Who knows?
So there's the link for the tickets for the Grand Data Over Dogma book launch tour.
Yeah.
We've got 4 dates right now that are available. We're gonna have tickets and everything up on the next 4 soon.
Very shortly.
Yes.
So look for those wherever you get Data Over Dogma news. We'll post it around on all of our stuff once it's up and running. But if you get so we're going to be, so the ones you can get tickets for, and we do still need people to buy some more tickets for these things.
We can pay for it.
Yeah. We have not sold out any of our shows yet. We've sold out several of our VIP events. So sorry if you wanted to come to the VIP in Chicago or LA. But we're going to be in Chicago. Do you have the dates and everything handy? Or
I do. April 26th. That is a Saturday. We are going to be in Chicago at the JW Marriott, just east of the river, starting at 7 p.m. And we have tickets for the general event available. Oh, you know what I got to do? I'm sorry. I always do this, and I apologize for it every time. I need to take down the question that I have just responded to. So, so it's not up there the entire time.
Right.
So that's the 26th of April. That's actually 3 days before the book officially drops. But we're going to have hard copies there. The publisher was like, we'll give you this Saturday before. That's as early as we can go. So we said, great, we'll do it. And then on the 28th, that is a Monday, we're going to be in Seattle, the Westin Seattle, same time, 7 p.m. And Westin Seattle is downtown, just west of the convention center. But
and I think there's still VIP tickets available for that, so you can sign up there for either the main event or for the VIP event. The VIP event, it's very small. It's 25 people. I think we've capped it at, so that you can have some quality time with us. Corner Dan and just make him ask and answer questions for you for as long as you want. And maybe fight amongst each other about who gets to corner Dan, and I'll just sit back and whoever's wanting to chat with me can.
And munch on the nibbles.
There will, the VIPs get food, and there will be a cash bar. Anyway, that's going to be a lot of fun. The shows are going to be great. We still, we know, just so that you guys know, we know exactly what the shows are going to be. So don't think for 1 second that we haven't actually got that fully sorted out yet, because that would be crazy.
And then, so that's Monday the 28th.
Right.
Monday the 30th. Wednesday the 30th, we're going to be in Portland. We're going to be at the Hilton Dunaway, which is just south of the and now I've forgotten the name of it.
Powell's Books.
No.
Donuts. I'm just thinking
the courthouse. The courthouse. There's a courthouse there, and there's a square right in front. Pioneer Courthouse. It's right just south of Pioneer Courthouse. And then on Friday, May 2nd, we're going to be at the Sofitel Beverly Hills. And that is just north of the Beverly Hills Mall, just east of Cedars-Sinai. So after us, you can go to the mall. And then when you have had too many pretzels and too much oil, you can go to Cedars-Sinai to get treated.
Go sort of gawk at people trying to see famous people. And then come to a fancy Beverly Hills hotel and hang out for a bit. And, we'll give you a good show. And like Dan said, we're going to make sure that there are books. Dan's book, it will be available there. Get copies for you and your friends. Make him sign everything that you can, and he'll do it. And then look, he's your dancing monkey on the live tour, and meet us both. And we really want to meet you guys. So I think, I mean, okay, we're on the live stream. This isn't necessarily like the Venn diagram of people watching your live streams and people who like our podcast is not necessarily a circle. So hopefully, some of you know who I am, because I'm guessing that plenty of people don't. But you should check out the podcast if you don't know who I am. It's a good podcast.
And then the stops that we're working on for round number 2 will be toward the third quarter of May. We're going to hit Dallas. We're going to hit Atlanta. We're going to hit Philly, and then we're going to hit DC.
Yep.
So those are the 4 stops on leg number 2, and we'll have the dates and the venues available soon. Tickets for those will be available at the same Indiegogo link. Hopefully, it
might be a different link, is what I'm learning. So we're gonna sort that out. I thought that I could make it the same link, and it's proving more difficult than I anticipated. But we'll figure it out and make sure that you guys can get tickets. Go now. Go, you'll come back. We'll be here. Go get your tickets now, and then come back. it's a great excuse to travel. Who doesn't want to go see Chicago or the Pacific Northwest or LA? You know what I mean? Like, it's a great, you can come and see us, and then the next day there's Disneyland. You don't know. Whatever you want.
It's the other side of the valley, but
Don't,
or I guess, do they call it the valley, the part that's right by the beach? Or is the
no,
valley
no.
only in between
The
the mountains?
valley is Sime Valley. It's on the other side of the mountains there.
Okay, so like Studio City, or that area is
Yeah, I
the
think so.
valley. Okay, okay.
So Valley Girls, which used to be a thing back in the 80s, that's where they're from.
Nice. I'm seeing questions. Data over Dogma UK tour when? I'm actually still haggling with the publishers about this. See, this is my first trade book, so I'm not really a known quantity in the publishing world, and they want to see that I can actually sell books before they're going to start fronting a lot of this funding and everything. So
it's a lot scary. Like, we are funding this entire.
Yeah, this is a Data Over Dogma sponsored tour. This is not the publisher.
And I would love to take us to the UK. It's definitely possible, and I think we would really be happy to do that. We just, funding it's a little scarier because it's a lot more money, and so, we just gotta, I don't know, maybe if you guys know of like an organization or a group that we could partner up with, and maybe they could, we could give a talk at somebody else's event, and then that can sort of pay for some of getting us over there. We could work something like that out. Think about it. Let's all put our thinking caps on and figure out how we can get us to the UK, because I freaking love the UK.
Yeah, I do as well. Now, in addition to those, I see a number of people saying, come here, come there, come to other places. I am going to appear in a handful of other locations independent of the podcast, and Dan doesn't like when I talk about this and around him, but
I love it. I love it. Just you just don't like it because then I know where you'll be, and I might show up and ruin everything.
So people talked about Salt Lake City. I've got 2 events in May that are happening in Salt Lake County. One is on May 14th, and that's going to be at the First Baptist Church of Salt Lake City, which, as you pointed out, is 13th East and 700 something South.
Yeah, like kitty corner from East High School.
Yeah, and this is sponsored by Brain Food Books and the
King's
English Bookshop. And so, as long as the church actually lets me through the doors, which is an open question, that event will take place on the 14th, and I think it is an Eventbrite thing. In fact, let me pull that up, and I can drop that link in there as well.
Is that a paid event?
That is a paid event. There's I believe the ticket is $35, and you get a copy of the book.
Oh. Okay.
So yes, because this is something the publisher has arranged. So things are cheaper when the publisher takes care of it. And then there's going to be another event that will be later. I think it might be the 29th of May. I've got to check and make sure we don't have tickets available yet, but it'll be at oh my gosh, and now I've forgotten the name of the other bookseller. I told you about this, Dan. Do you happen to remember?
Benchmark?
Benchmark, that's right. Thank you so much. Benchmark Books. It's also in Salt Lake City. It's on Main Street, around 3200 South. So that's another event that's I'm going to be at. That will be later in May. I'll have more details on that. May 12th, I'm actually going to be in Cali. I'm going to be at UC Santa Barbara. I've been invited out there to do an event. June 8th, I'm going to be at the Old South Church in Boston. I've been invited out there for an event, and they've offered to do a book event as well. And then June 10th, I'm going to be at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City. So that will be another event followed by book event. And the Boston and the New York events will be free. So no charge for Bostonians and New Yorkonians. So yeah, they.
I'm pretty sure that's the correct demonym for a New Yorker.
I am pretty sure that. Yeah, they just say New Yorkers, don't they? I don't
Generally,
know. I've no. This will be my first time in New York City.
I
Like
think they call them big applers.
big. I've flown in and out of New York City many times. I've never actually been, and I've ridden a bus through New York City. I've never actually been on the ground in New York City,
What?
so this will be my first time. Yep.
Oh, that's crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that one I may have to come out with just so I can show you around the Big Apple. 'Cause it's a fun city. I mean, there's a thing or two to do there. I don't know if you know that.
I have heard tell, yeah. The scuttlebutt is that you can find things to do. New Yorkopudlians is
I
another
like
option.
that. I like that.
Yeah. Better than New York Bragdagians or
Braggadocians.
when in New York City again? That will be on June 10th, the evening of June 10th.
Yeah, mark your calendars, man.
Yeah. And that'll be a good time. I'm really looking forward to that. And then I'm working on an event in Clarkdale, Arizona. I have a bunch of family that has long lived in Jerome and Clarkdale and Sedona. So I know that area fairly well. And I have family that owns a bookstore in Clarkdale. So I'm going to be there. And then I'm also working on something in Denver in July. So those are the ones I know about. I think those are all the ones that I have that we're getting close to either getting on the calendar or publicizing. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
it's going to be a good time. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm excited to meet people and see who shows up.
yeah, me too. It should be very interesting. It's always a good time when people have me out to speak, and all different kinds of people show up to these things. So
Sure.
it'll be great. And then yeah, I'm still working. That's the other thing. I'm still working on seeing if my publisher can get me a booth at either Comic-Con or Dragon Con. I'm going to
Nice.
be at both events, and I'm actually going to be on some panels at Dragon Con. And I'm working on seeing if they'll find a way to get us a booth or let me borrow somebody else's booth or something like that so I can sign books and take pictures. And
I was supposed to do some stuff at Dragon Con, and then I found out, and then I'm going to a different event. It's unfortunately in conflict with Burning Man, which I am.
Oh, yes.
So I won't be able to attend Dragon Con, which is sad. I've never actually been to one of the fantasy cons. One of the
I thought Comic-Con was like the biggest and the coolest, and like in terms of the movie industry, it's the bigger event, but in terms of size and scope and just diversity of audience and interest and all that kind of stuff, Dragon Con just nukes Comic-Con. It is no contest. So yeah, it is. I didn't believe the hype, and when I went the last year for the first time, and blew my mind. Yeah, it was a totally different experience.
Nice. Well,
yeah,
I'll have to go in 2 years or next year.
Next
26.
Yeah, 2026. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Did I drop the link in the Eventbrite link? I don't know if I did.
I literally can't see anything that's happening. I just
you don't see the chat. You don't have anything going on.
No, I don't. No, all I got is us. When you pull up the super questions, I can see those.
Right.
And you and I have a private chat.
Yeah, but is there a tab that says chat right next to private chat?
A tab that says chat. There's a comments. Oh, look at that. There's a comments thing.
There you go. Now you should see it. So now you should be looking at the live chat.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Boom.
So if I did not drop the Eventbrite thing for the May 14th event in Salt Lake, I'm dropping it now. Okay.
There it is.
And I keep getting questions. Somebody says, when is the New York City event? That is June 10th. And it's going to be at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, which has a seating capacity of over 2,000. So don't be shy. Show up. And this will actually be in connection with Pride Month. So it's actually going to be a conversation between me and the dean of the cathedral, who is a gay man. And we're going to talk about things for a bit, and then have beverages of your choice. I will have non-alcoholic, but there will be plenty of alcoholic beverages as well. And they have a rule there. I was delighted to hear about this rule. He was like, we offer wine and other alcoholic beverages, and he was like, at one point we made the decision that we also needed to do non-alcoholic drinks, but rather than like a jug of water or something, they actually
have apple juice.
Which is what they always gave me at Oxford. But it's a written rule, has to be non-alcoholic options of equal attractiveness. So so if they got something that's a really attractive alcoholic beverage, they got to have equally attractive non-alcoholic.
They're gonna be out there with mocktails. Just
I said just as long as there's Diet Dr. Pepper. That is the ceiling of attractiveness as far as I'm concerned. So
that's fine.
All right, I'm going to get to a couple of these super chat questions so that folks don't have to. But first, thank you, Jonathan, for the super sticker. And then this looks like a super chat, but there's no question tagged along with it. Happy Sky, thank you so much for the question. Does Bible say eating bread daily is ideal diet? No. I don't think there's anything in the Bible that really talks much about an ideal diet. I mean, there are proscriptions. There are things you shouldn't be eating, and there are kind of descriptive references to things that people do eat. But there's nothing saying that you should eat bread every day.
Point of order: there was a whole group of Israelites wandering around in the desert, and all they ate was whatever manna is every day. So they say that's bread. I don't know if it's bread, but it was on the ground. It's ground wafers, but that's descriptive. That's not prescriptive, and it never says anything. But it doesn't say you have to. I mean, but that was what they had. That was all they had, I guess.
Actually,
it did say they have to, didn't it? Didn't it say that like they were supposed to eat that? That was what I don't know.
Well, that was all that they had to eat, and they were supposed to collect twice as much on the day before the Sabbath, so that they weren't collecting on the Sabbath. Now, daily bread. If you're thinking about the Lord's Prayer, that's actually an interesting little conundrum, because we're not sure exactly what it means, because the word that is used there is what's called a hapax legomenon, which means this is the only time this word occurs, and so we're not exactly sure what precisely it means, and it's based on a word ousia, which means nature or essence, and I just have to find the word itself. 6:11. So
you say the word that is the only word is the one that's translated as bread. Is
daily
that the
bread?
Word? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
daily bread. It's a single word.
Yes, epiousios.
Okay.
And so what it sounds like is epi, which is a preposition that means like on or about or something like that. And then ousios might have something to do with nature or essence. And so some people think, okay, well, is could be necessary for existence. So like your bread that's necessary for existence. Or the other idea is that ousia sometimes has a sense of the being time, the current day, and so epiousios might mean like concerning the current day, and so that's where people go daily, the daily necessary. And so we do have arton. I'm sorry, I didn't even see the ton arton, hemon ton epiousion. So there is bread, but then it's epiousios. So is it the bread that's necessary for existence, or is it the bread that is related to the day? So But but that's also not saying you need to do this in order to have the ideal diet. So yeah. The UX design guy, thank you so much for the question. Is the consensus of John 20:28 that it's identifying Jesus as God? I think the majority of scholars, yes, would probably say that. I disagree with them. It says, in what sense do most scholars believe him to be since the Trinity did not yet exist? I think what most scholars would say is that they are identifying Jesus as God in some sense, but it's not really clear exactly what sense, how they understand that to work. And I think most scholars would say this is kind of unclear, and the authors kind of wanted to eat his cake and have it too. Kind of suggesting that both Jesus is distinct from God, but also is in some sense God. So I think most scholars would say we don't know for sure. But yes, the Trinity, the notion of three co-equal, co-eternal, consubstantial persons comprising the one ousia, the one essence, the one being of God, that is still centuries down the road. So that is not there yet. But I've got, I'm working on a presentation for a conference in Italy in June. I'm working on a paper for a publication that needs to be turned in at the end of this year. I'm working on another academic book that will all address early Christology, and we'll talk about this in more detail. And in fact, in my forthcoming book, The Bible Says So, What We Get Right and Wrong About Scripture's Most Controversial Issues, I do have a chapter that addresses the claim that the Bible says Jesus is God. And I do have a portion where I talk about John 20:28. In fact, I talk about John for, how many pages do I talk about John? It's a good, like, 3/4 of the chapter is talking about John. Yeah, so about 13 pages I'm talking about what's going on in the Gospel of John. Alrighty. Somebody says, post link to free audiobook, please. So I knew there was a possibility of confusion when it came to hearing about this free audiobook.
Yeah.
I got a stack of books over here that for like quick access.
Well, here, okay, so you'll be looking for your book. I will tell people that one of the things that is happening is that we are working on figuring out how to get the audiobook for Dan's book. I can say Yahweh. You prefer not to. And I understand why. But for Adonai's Divine Images, which is an adaptation of your doctoral thesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your dissertation.
Yes.
And what I think we're going to do, and Dan, you and I have to sort of finalize our thinking about this, is we're going to release it on our podcast stream, but we're not going to do it on our main drop day. We're going to do it sort of later in the week, as a sort of separate
bonus content.
Content. So the people who are interested can dive into it. People who are less into, because I'm guessing, and I have not read this book, but Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm guessing it's a lot headier and a lot sort of more in the weeds than our show tends to be.
Yes. So I did try to make it more accessible than was the doctoral dissertation, but it is still pretty technical. And this is so I chose to publish this open access. So you can access a PDF of this book for free online. You can just Google the title and get the PDF. So if you want to check it out and see if it's if it's up your alley or not, feel free to do that. But I went back to the publisher and said, hey, can I record the audiobook myself and then release it for free as well, since this version is open access, and since you won't have to pay anybody for the audiobook. And it took the publisher a while, but they got back to me and said, sure, go ahead. And so I'm in the process of recording it now. I already have a chapter down, but my publisher then contacted me and they were like, hey, somebody told us that you're releasing a free version of your audiobook online. And they were like, can you just hold off until after our trade book is released so people don't get really confused here? So I've recorded the audiobook for the Bible says so as well, and that will be coming out April 29th. That audiobook, I wish it were, but it is not free. That audiobook is not free, and so I'm going to wait till that is
expensive. It's just going to be a normal priced audio.
Just gonna, yeah, and you know, if you have Audible and you're paying, what is it, like $17-18 a month or something like that, and it's just a credit. So, yeah. But this one will be free, and I'm gonna wait probably till the we're gonna wait for a bit until after the other one has not run its course, but at least is out there. Before we start releasing one chapter at a time, the audio files for Adonai's Divine Images.
Yeah.
So
that'll be a few months down the line. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will, yes, the links will be very easy to find. Yes. So I'm getting quite a stack of books over here.
How does that happen? It's not like you're a scholar or something.
And I got, oh gosh. And I keep knocking these over. I have a stack of 1,000 of these. And these are book plates. They're stickers. You peel off the back, and basically you can request for free one of these so that you get your book in the mail. You get this in the mail. You peel it off. You stick it in the front of your book, and then you got a signed copy. Didn't cost you any extra money. You didn't have to travel anywhere. I've signed about 400 of these, and I've got 600 to go that I have to sign, and then I send it back to the publisher.
It didn't count because you used an auto pen, and that means that it's no.
Yeah, the Supreme Court has not ruled on the legality of
whether or not
book plates. Yes, these are not pardons. All right, let's look at another question. Thank you so much. Randomity. The accentuation there has thrown me for a bit of a loop, but thank you so much for the question. Hi, Dan. Hi, username that I don't know how to pronounce accurately. Do the Jews believe in the inerrancy and univocality of the Old Testament / Torah and their other scriptures? That depends on the Jewish person you ask. You've got people across the entire spectrum, although I think there are more folks within the Jewish community who would fall on the end of the spectrum that does not believe in the inerrancy and univocality of the scriptures. In fact, one of the things I loved about studying at the Oxford Center for Hebrew and Jewish Studies when I was at Oxford was that I was living around so many Jewish scholars, and they talked about the Jewish person's responsibility to the scriptures as a, it wasn't a constitution, it wasn't a rule book, it wasn't understood to be inerrant or univocal. It was an invitation to wrestle with what's going on in the text and the stories and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought that was such a great way to approach things. Well, it wasn't about,
if you look at Jewish history and you look at the all of these records of rabbis doing just that, wrestling with the text, disagreeing with each other about what could have been meant, how it should be interpreted and stuff. It does seem like they're more practiced at seeing things as non-univocal or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a bit of holy envy I have, to quote the great Krister Stendahl. The UX design guy, thank you so much for the question. In comparison to how John 10:33 should be rendered a God and a man, would John 1:1 be bad, rendered a God, divine, deity? No, actually, I think that it would be much more accurate to render probably deity or divine, rather than, I think a God can work. I don't think that's actually what the author was probably trying to get at, but the God is definitely not what was intended there. And I've actually got a video that I'm probably going to release in the morning directly addressing John 1:1, because every 6 months or so I gotta wade back into those waters.
What is John 1:1? What does it say?
It says enarchi in hologos ke hologos in prostonteon ke theos in hologos. So that
and
is,
if my Greek is a little bit rusty, maybe you can
then get better at your Greek. No, it's so in the beginning was the Word or the Logos, and the Logos or the Word was with God, next to God, and Theos, or I think the best translation would be, and the Logos was deity or the Logos was divine.
Mm-hmm.
And this is John's Logos theology, and you find Logos theology, it's being borrowed. I think John is probably taking it mainly from like Philo and other Greco-Roman Jewish thinkers, but is also being pulled a bit from Middle Platonism. And so John is kind of mixing the two. And this was something that went on in the early 2nd century as well. The apologists were basically trying to harmonize Middle Platonism with their Judaism and their Jesus following. And so you've got folks like Justin Martyr and Athenagoras and Theophilus of Antioch and Irenaeus and others who are kind of adopting this Logos theology and trying to make it jive with their ideas about Jesus. And I'm going to get into all that in the video.
Noise.
But yes, I just the thing I got to do is remember the other Middle Platonists that they're borrowing from. Eudorus of Alexandria is one of them. Antiochus of... That's the one I forget.
Just make it up.
Yeah, well,
Antiochus.
Yeah, that'll go over
Cleveland.
well. Yeah, of Cleveland. Cleveland. For those of us who were traumatized by Howard the Duck.
I want to
Ascalon, Antiochus of Ascalon. Oh, I couldn't believe didn't remember that. And then Numenius of Apamea is the other one. You want to what? You want to go? You want to watch Howard the Duck again?
I kind of want to rewatch Howard the Duck. It came out when I was a kid, obviously, and I believe I loved it then, and I believe I would be horrified by it now. So I am curious about that. Like, what level of horror am I going to get to with Howard the Duck? Because it feels like it would be high.
I don't think it could horrify me as much as it did when I was a kid, and the guy kind of transforms into that monster toward the end, like that Jeffrey Jones, who
also transformed into a monster.
Yes. I didn't find out about that until I went to see Beetlejuice 2, and I was like, why didn't they bring back old Jeffrey? Yeah, and then I looked it up, and I was like, good call. Yeah. Leah Thompson is wonderful in everything. I think Leah Thompson is wonderful, but yeah, I don't think it holds up. Yeah. I'm just gonna say it right now. I watched the last time I was in like a hotel on one of my trips. I watched RoboCop. Was like just starting on TV, and I was like, nice. And
from the 80s, the real RoboCop. Wasn't there a
original RoboCop? Yeah, there were sequels and remake. Yeah, no, the original RoboCop. And when the credits rolled, I was like, that does not hold up.
No. It's extremely violent though. So yeah. If that's what you're in the mood for,
I mean, it's a movie. It was made in the 80s. I mean, it's about as 80s as a movie can get, where you got corrupt businessmen doing coke in their very weird looking houses, and then they all get shot, and the city is just crime riddled and crawling with sex workers with hearts of gold. So yeah, it's weird movie.
Mitch is saying in the comments that it looks like you skipped over his super chat. I don't know if that's Mitch.
I probably just haven't gotten to it. Maybe I did. I apologize, Mitch. Mitch Cole 1, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for making it accessible. Best audiobooks to learn more about the critical scholarship besides your book, which I can't wait for. Well, I appreciate that. And audiobooks are they're kind of annoying because the best books aren't necessarily available as audiobooks. They need to be trade books. They need to be published intentionally for a general audience. But
I believe that's you calling scholars lazy. I think that's what you just did.
No, it's the publishers.
Yes.
But you can find a lot of good audiobooks by folks like Bart Ehrman. Does his books, pretty much all of them are available as audiobooks. I always highly recommend John Barton's book, A History of the Bible, the book and its faiths. And this is available as an audiobook. In fact, that is how I first consumed this book, and then went, I need a hard copy of this thing. So that's a wonderful audiobook as well, A History of the Bible.
Because it's hard to write into in the margins of an audiobook. That's tricky.
Well, it's that, and then you can't look at the footnotes and go chase down the references that they talk about. Another really good audiobook that I listened to was Amy Jill Levine and Mark Zvi Bretler's book, The Bible with and Without Jesus, which was an interesting discussion where they take 10 case studies of things that are like quoted in the New Testament but come from the Hebrew Bible. And they say, here's what they probably originally meant in the Hebrew Bible. Here's how Christians interpreted them in the New Testament. And then after, here's how Jewish folks have interpreted them since then. And so you got like 3 different, usually very different perspectives going on for each of these 10 case studies. And the book is kind of making the case for opening up lines of communication between Jewish folks and Christian folks about how they're interpreting the text and how there are a lot of differences there. So that was a really good one. But yeah, there, like, when I go into audiobook apps and things like that and go looking for fun stuff, there's not a ton in the field of biblical studies, but there are some good things. But the one thing I would say is, if you're looking for audiobooks in the field of biblical studies, find something done by someone who actually is a biblical scholar. Elaine Pagels does a lot of good audiobook stuff. So her book Revelations is good. It's all about the book of Revelation. She's got something on Gnosticism. She's got something on Satan. So Elaine Pagels, Bart Ehrman, Francesca Stavrokopoulou, she did the audiobook for God and Anatomy. That's really good as well. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, I would start with John Barton's A History of the Bible. Nice. If you're looking to get in on the ground floor. All right. Megan, thank you so much for the question. The dangers of religion are obvious, but if we throw the baby out with the bathwater, what are we losing? Why should non-theists care about religion? So there's not really any such thing as religion outside of our thinking and talking about it. It is a category that we have created to kind of label the intersection of a variety of different side effects of evolved human cognition. Having to do with the fact that we tend to be very sensitive to the presence of agents in the world around us, and using our imaginations and using what we don't know about the world around us, we tend to create the perception of agency and agents. And on a social level, that tends to then become embedded in discourse, and we talk about these agents and their agency and use them as explanations for things, and then create these social frameworks for interactions with them that require costly signaling rituals and things like that, which then become tools for facilitating cooperation and trust and things like that. And that then generates greater social cohesion as groups get larger and more complex. And so religion perseveres because it got in on the ground floor when it came to helping human societies grow and develop.
There's definitely something to be said for like a shared mythos. But I will say this, because I do think that and I've looked into this quite a bit myself. This isn't something like, I don't have expertise. I haven't studied in depth the cognitive science of religion as you have, Dan, but I have looked into this quite a bit and I'm working with some people on a project that may come to fruition. We're going to see. But that would be basically literally exactly on this.
Okay.
What's bathwater? What do we throw out? What do we keep when we've deconstructed, when we've decided that we don't need religion or whatever? And it may well be that we can supplant the shared mythos with something else. But you're right. Like, what we need is to make sure that there is community, and that there are mechanisms in place to keep our silly monkey brains focused on making sure that we take care of each other, because we're really bad at being, forget the mythos of the hyper masculine individualists that a lot of people peddle here in the US and whatever. We're terrible when we're individuals. We're not made for individualism at all as a species, and so we need community, and we need mechanisms to foster that community. And a lot of times when people have tried to make communities work without a shared mythos there, they're a little bit mamby-pamby, they can fall apart. So yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be some ways of looking at that. And I do think that there's a lot that various religions from around the world have to offer that are useful in those endeavors.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that project that you have. There has been some research that suggests that democratic societies that have robust social safety nets, there's what they call a hydraulic relationship, where they tend to be less religious, but that robust social safety net tends to replace, stand in for what the religiosity was doing. And so they do study societies that are more and less religious and try to see, are there other things that result in the same outcomes that religion produces, and there are. But yeah, on a more parochial level, when it comes to community that people talk about when they talk about church congregations and things like that. Yeah, that's definitely something that I want to see more effort with. Like walkable communities is something that I have. They say when you get to my age, you either get into smoking meats or you become very concerned about World War II. Neither of those
Roman
things are
Empire.
True. Yeah, but I have become very interested in walkable communities.
You live in the wrong state, my friend.
I do.
If you want walkable communities, you ain't in it.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir. But I will say that one of the reasons we live in the house we live in is because we are less than literally a 3-minute walk from most of the things we could ever need. Like, it is about as walkable as you can incidentally become. Yeah. But that's the kind of thing that I think fosters greater community as well, when you spend a lot more time outside amongst your neighbors, and I think that develops greater community. And so yeah, but that's a great question. Yeah, there is baby that is frequently thrown out with the bathwater. I think there are some folks who kind of they swing the pendulum a little too far in the other direction, and yeah, I think that there's an issue with that. And at the same time, religion, people talk about the dangers of religion, and that's casting a pretty wide net, when really they're using religion in the more traditional sense of anything that adequately approximates Protestantism. Like religion is usually a proxy for Christianity and specific types of Christianity, because we can go in the US and particularly outside of the US and find all kinds of traditions that are religions that have absolutely nothing to do with the kinds of things that people point out as the dangers of religion. But yes, that's just an enormous, complex conversation.
Well, and to be fair, there is a dark side to shared mythos too, and especially, and this can apply to any sort of religious or group, which is like when you create an in-group and an out-group, that can be deeply problematic, and usually having a shared mythos does that. So that, I mean, that's one of the advantages to what you were talking about, where, in countries where they have a robust social safety net that then relieves the need for sort of religious coherence. Then suddenly that doesn't need a mythos. That's just like, the whole mythos is, you believe what you want, we just are going to take care of each other systemically.
Yes. And that goes back to a couple of videos I made about this idiotic notion that empathy is going to destroy Western
Oh my
civilization.
gosh, I know, right? And also, not for nothing, but those societies, and they're usually, you know, the ones that you usually think of are sort of the Scandinavian societies or whatever. But those societies, when they, I don't remember what organization does the World Happiness Index, but they tend to be the happiest
Yeah.
societies in the world as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coincidence? Technically, yes, it is coinciding, but it might have to do with each other.
Yeah. And yeah, forgot where I was going with that. But
I don't know. Do another question then.
yeah, let's do another question. Okay. Kalai235, thank you so much for the question. Islam calls Jesus a prophet and not God. Is there any data about the influence of early Christian sects on the formation of Islam? Not really. You probably have a little bit of competition that probably influenced the way Islam developed, but I think Judaism was more directly influential on things. But yeah, not. I think most of the influence would have been as Islam was competing with Christian groups, and there was some schismogenesis that probably resulted in features of their identity and their development that was basically distinguishing them from Christianity. It's not so much.
Do you think that there's any chance that there was like a backhanded compliment in Islam deciding that Jesus was, oh sure, he's a prophet, like as a way of of overtly denying the divinity of Jesus, kind of as a jab?
Well, I have no doubt that a big part of it was consolidating the tradition of Jesus, subordinating that tradition to their own. So
Right.
I think that to a degree, yeah, it was an attempt to appropriate and try to gain control over. So yeah, there was definitely a jab there, and you have, you know, and there was lots of conflict between early Islamic groups and early Christian groups. So yeah, there was. I think the rhetoric about how similar they were was a lot more lip service in the early centuries than we tend to think. For the most part, I'm sure that there were those who got along better than we're aware, but there was enough conflict that yeah. Theupla, if my my vision is getting worse. Not
I just like that
really.
what you went for immediately was like a Greek pronunciation of that, as opposed to just the oopla or
The
whatever,
Oopla. Okay.
or something.
Touche. Um, but yeah, I had what is it, LASIK? Oh gosh, how many years ago? Like 7 or 8 years ago. And my eyesight has been just phenomenal, and it was the best $3,700 I've ever spent on anything in my life. But now I'm having to squint a
I
little
had
bit
it
more.
too. I had it too. And now I'm back to glasses because I didn't want to. My doctor called it a touch up, and I was like, I don't want to do it again, and then just have this happen again. Plus, people who watch our show on the YouTubes here will know that I like having the opportunity to accessorize with the spectacles.
Yes, absolutely.
So
my daughter and I were laughing the other day about how we need to pronounce more English words like they would have pronounced them in ancient Greek. She got in the car to go to dinner last night and was like, "I have my spectacles."
It's like when people come back from Hawaii, from their trip to Hawaii, and then suddenly everything is pronounced like, oh, let's go rent an uhaul truck or whatever. Like they start pronouncing everything.
Oh golly.
All the
The oopla or theupla, whichever one happens to be what was intended. Thank you so much for the question. What are your thoughts on listening to the Bible as an audiobook versus reading a paper/papyrus/parchment version? And you left out reading a digital version, but that's fine. I have come to know Stephen Weber a little bit online recently because for some reason I'm friends now with folks that I used to watch on TV when I was growing up in the 90s. And he just finished listening to the King James version on Audiobook. And he was talking about how that was an important experience for him because he thinks everybody needs to read the Bible start to finish, just so they know what's in there. And he is a very progressive person who is very upset about Christian nationalism. But I mean, if that's how you want to consume it, that's fine. I think that creates a kind of engagement that is a little different from how I like to engage the Bible, because I'm usually doing some kind of research, and you can't really research with an audio.
You're 8 levels deep into cross-referencing
Yeah.
when you dive into something,
which is not something that's easy with an audiobook.
I will say this: I sometimes, in prepping for our show, I have audio versions of the Bible that I will listen to because I know I need to be doing something else, but I need to have read certain parts of the Bible, and you got to have a good reader, because it's thick and difficult stuff, and it's easy to sort of get like glazed over, when you're looking at 22 begats, or when it's like, it's easy to get lost in an audiobook. So you got to have a good reader who like brings it to life, or it's going to be boring.
Yeah, I asked Steve if he had was listening to the James Earl Jones version of it. I don't know if he was, because I don't remember what he said in response. By the way, Theupla says 100% correct pronunciation. I imagine he might be talking to me, but he could be talking to you. So.
I know. I'm sure it's you. I'm sure it's you.
But yeah, thank you so much for that question. I would say that, it depends on what you want to get out of it. It depends on why you're engaging with it, and how you're comfortable engaging with text. And if you just want to absorb it and experience it, or if you want to get 8 levels deep in the way that I do. So yeah, an audiobook would really work well for me, and I would be like, this moron doesn't know how to pronounce these names. Anyway, so so yeah, it's like, it's like me watching Prince of Egypt, and I'm like, they got the pyramids are on the wrong side of the river.
In fairness, though, sir, you don't know how to pronounce those names either. You just know how, like,
I know how the original versions were pronounced. I don't know how the like conventionalized pronunciations. if we're talking about biblical names,
right? Well, I mean, presume how we presume they pronounced it, but like,
okay,
language changes over time. Written language
true.
corresponds differently to sounds over
true.
time.
Yeah. But I still think I pronounce them better than
I 100% agree with you on that.
100%. Theupla, excuse me. Thank you for another question. Does the Bible contain any jokes or other humor? There are folks who've researched this at some length, and I wish I had their references closer at hand, but I don't. There is some parody. Like some people would understand the book of Jonah to be satire, to be parody, kind of mocking the prophetic genre a little bit.
Interesting.
And at the very end, like you can understand Jonah's like, you didn't destroy the city, and God's like, but look at the cattle. You're gonna destroy all those cattle? That's nice cattle. Like there's a way to read it as humor.
I like that you honed in on that, and not the part where he gets eaten by a fish and
by a big fish. Yeah,
survives that.
He's in this fish, and he's like, okay, God, I'll do it.
Okay, just maybe only one more day in here. Would that be cool with all of us if I could just be in here for maybe a day and then get spat out?
So I think there are some things that potentially could be satire and parody and things like that. And I know that there are some scholars out there who would be like, well, you forgot about Dre, and would be able to rattle off some passages that they interpret as humor or comedy or things like that. I can't think of them off the top of my head. But yeah, they are pretty few and far between. And I just got a text from one of my best friends in the whole world, buddy of mine named Travis. So I don't know if you saw the video I made today, Dan. Probably not. But
Which one?
the one I made today. I only made one. But my somebody posted a question somewhere. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember if it was in good faith or if it was a jab. But they were like, "Why did you misspell your last name and your username?" And so I made a video where I was just like, "Hey, this is what happened. This is why I did this." Where it's just a phonetic spelling of my last name that I used when I was living in Uruguay, serving a proselytizing mission for the LDS Church. And so I found some old mission photos and just threw them on just put a few of them on the screen.
Good.
And one of them was a picture of my buddy Travis and me on a green at this golf course in downtown Montevideo, on the one day of our entire missions that we got to go play golf. Where
you got to play golf? I thought
yes.
I thought that was not allowed.
There's nothing specifically saying you can't play golf. And in Montevideo, there's this nice golf course. It was a country club that was private. However, it was built on public land. And so they were like, fine, you can do this one day a week. The public can come play golf for free. So we found out about this. and that day was Monday, and we had district meetings on Monday, and Monday was not our preparation day. But I was an office elder, meaning I was one of the ones who was dragged in to do administrative stuff. And so I was the financiero. I was the financial secretary. And one Monday, our mission president pulled like four of us aside and was like, "Hey, take the rest of the day off, go play some golf." And we were like, "Yeah." And so he was like, "I want you to wear your monkey suit." Yeah. Well, the shirts and ties and everything.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I put this photo of me holding the flag with my buddy Travis, and
oh my gosh.
And he just texted me because he obviously saw the video and he was like, "Shout out!" So I was tickled by that. I didn't even think that Travis would see the video, but so
that's fine. If you're golfing on your mission and the ball goes into a water trap, do you have to you have to leave it. You can't go in after it because I think missionaries are supposed to avoid water, right?
You're not supposed to go swimming. But
I don't have to take a drop. You're gonna have to do a new ball and take a drop. That's all there is to it.
I don't go in the water after a golf ball anyway. What the? Why would
I saw a video just the other day of a golfer. I think this might have been a couple of years ago, but a golfer who went in the water. Oh no! What he did was he put down a marker on the green and went to scoop up his ball, and accidentally let go of it, and it went into the water behind him. And so his accountant, because you have to finish it out with the same ball, you can't just replace the ball. So his accountant had to go into the water and find his ball so that he didn't lose a stroke for switching balls. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, golf can be really dumb sometimes. Let's get back to a question. Okay. Joss Moldan, perhaps, or Malden. Thank you so much for the question. The Song of Solomon seems to really love God. How did sexually explicit love poetry end up in the proto-Orthodox canon? So yeah, that is erotic poetry, straight up. And it sounds like it was just something that was popular at some point. Maybe it was attributed to Solomon, and so that's why they were kind of hanging on to it. They were like, it came from Solomon. I guess you
got to leave it in. It's Solomon.
We're just sticking with it. Yeah. And
guys.
And it became quickly interpreted as, you have a metaphor in a bunch of places in the Hebrew Bible where the people of Israel are God's wife. And so this was probably rather quickly reinterpreted as love poetry about God and God's people, the people of Israel. And they probably were not as bothered as we would be by this metaphor.
It is, especially Americans who were, our country was founded by Puritans and has long had an unhealthily puritanical view of sex. I don't know that everybody has always been that worried about it. You did skip the hashtag that Josh put in there.
Hashtag breasts like towers.
Is that a thing?
I don't think that's what it is. I think it's her breasts are like does.
You know, breasts can be like a lot of things. You might
Preaching
be
to the
thinking
choir again. Preaching to the choir again.
there might be a couple of different breast references. That Song of Solomon is it goes on for a bit.
It does. But I think okay, I'm gonna have to. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna search because I don't remember exactly what. Boink. Okay. So here's from the King James version. Okay, the word breasts comes up 8 times in the Song of Songs. A bundle of myrrh is my well beloved unto me. He shall lie all night betwixt my breasts.
Okay.
And then here's the one I'm thinking of. Thy two breasts are like two young roes that are twins, which feed among the lilies.
Two young roes?
Roes, which I think fawns.
Oh,
So
okay.
does. So doe, a deer, a female deer.
I've never heard roe a deer though. That's new. That's a new one on.
Well, it's the King James version, so this is early 17th century, probably even 16th century. It probably didn't change the Bishop's Bible.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy who studied Shakespeare quite extensively, I would think that I would have known. He had lots of deer references. I know heart and as a heart, if a heart should like a hind is a deer word, but I don't know roe.
Thy two breasts are like two young roes that are twins. So that's a couple chapters later. This thy stature is like to a palm tree, and thy breasts to clusters of grapes. So I guess they're hanging low.
Don't use these at home, kids. These are bad pickup lines.
This is advanced. I said I will go up to the palm tree. I will take hold of the boughs thereof. Now also thy breath shall be as clusters of the vine, and the smell of thy nose like apples. We've got a reference to suckled the breasts of my mother. We have a little sister, and she hath no breasts. What shall we do for our sister in the day when she shall be spoken for?
I remember in high school.
Oh, there we go.
Used in mean ways. That our sister hath no breasts. One was sometimes quoted.
She was on a committee. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So I was wrong. Song of Solomon 8:10. I am a wall, and my breasts like towers. Then was I in his eyes as one that found favor.
Okay.
So I was like, now he's looking.
Yeah, that's some perky towers he's got there.
Huge tracts of land, to quote the great poet.
I just want to, all of you guys, I just want you all to thank me for getting Dan going on a whole breast run there. That was my doing, and you owe me one.
This is much better. Like here's a bit of a tangent. I love, and a lot of people are going to hate this. When I was born, my parents played in a bluegrass band. I was raised on bluegrass and folk and old country music.
Love it.
I love country music. There's not really a genre of music I don't really like apart from cumbia. But I love country music. So one of the country stations in Utah is on my my radio, one of the presets, and there's some song that is where the singer's like, I got a heart like a truck, and for some reason this metaphor just does not sit well with me. I don't know why, but every time that song comes on, I'm like, what a stupid metaphor. Like I get it, I get what she's saying, but every time she sings the chorus,
I'm pretty sure
I gotta change this.
It's a bad metaphor, and it was because it was written by AI that was just trying to get all of the buzzwords from country music into the song, and they knew they had to get truck in there at some point. So,
because you gotta have your beer, you gotta have your American flag, you gotta have your truck.
A dog isn't unwelcome.
The dog is that's also a big part of it. And man, yeah, so much of country these days has become so Christian nationalism,
Oh my
and
God.
it's
I can't, I
so
don't,
bizarre.
I don't know
That
how
is,
you can listen to modern country music. Like old
I,
bluegrass and old country, I'm on board. Waylon Jennings or, any of those guys,
yep.
I'm right there with you. But you get into modern country and it is like it is a desert out there. I'm not on board.
Yeah. One of my I think one of the first the first 3 CDs I bought were Metallica's Black Album, No Doubt Tragic Kingdom, and Sublime's self-titled album. But I owned some cassettes and records before that, and one of the first ones I ever had was Highwaymen, which was and I still love all the
Oh,
songs off of it.
that's a whole bunch of different guys, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it was like a
it's
super group. It was like
yeah,
Chris Christopherson
Brad,
and guy with the braids. Why can't Willie
Willie Nelson.
Nelson? Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a highwayman. That was I still love all those songs. And yeah, the Seldom Seen and the Country Gentlemen were the 2 bluegrass bands that I really loved. And the Seldom Seen had a song called "Wait a Minute," and that is my favorite. One of my favorite songs of all time is "Wait a Minute." Okay.
Yeah, we got to power through some.
Yeah, we gotta do some stuff. Thank you but yeah, it's erotic poetry that just kind of incidentally ended up in there. And if you look in early Jewish debates about what is scripture and what isn't, this and this and Esther were like 2 of the ones that were not really on the chopping block, but that were highly debated. And that kind of made them like extra canonical. There's like a rabbinical text, whereas like of all the texts that defile the hands, Song of Solomon defiles the hands the most. It was like God broke the mold when Song of Solomon was written. So, but erotic poetry is a big part of ancient West Asian literature as well. So this was something that was going on at the time. Jeff, thank you so much for the question. Egyptians detest shepherds, Genesis 46:34. Any historical meaning, anachronistic or not? Egyptians detested a lot of folks. Like you can go look at some old literature and they're like, fishermen suck. And like there's I'm trying to remember the name of the text. I can't remember the name of the text, but it's basically like being a scribe rules. Like we have the best job. Fishermen suck. You got to be, the water stinks. You got to look out for
smelled those
crocodiles.
guys? Come on.
Yeah. So the shepherds thing, I don't think that is like accurate. I think that's probably just the authors and editors just trying to be like, we need some conflict here. Let's come up with this. And this is why they're, excuse me, and this is where they're they're coming to town. Jacob and the family's coming to town, and Joseph's like, tell them you're shepherds. They hate shepherds. And they'll be like, ooh, go to Goshen because we want you to end up in Goshen. So I don't know the degree to which that is accurate, but like it could have been just part of their kind of urban mythos that it's probably not shepherds so much as like nomads that they didn't like, because you do frequently see the Egyptians glaring down their snouts at the nomadic peoples, the Asiatics they call them, the folks from Canaan and east of there who are just wandering around, the highwaymen. They were not fans. So
do you think Egyptians detest shepherds was their version of they hate us for our freedom?
I think that's definitely a part of it. But like in Genesis, you also have this contrast between Lot, who settles in the city, and Abraham, who is, pitches his tent in the field and is nomadic. And, Lot, the city Lot settles in, becomes, the epitome of wickedness, while Abraham, is the epitome of righteousness. So there was kind of they were given as good as they were getting. So some of the biblical authors were very much like, yeah, well, people live in cities suck. You coastal elites. Why don't you look at how much red is on this map? So yeah, anachronistic. I don't know if I would say it's anachronistic, but I don't know how accurate it is. Jonathan, thanks so much for the question. Can you please explain how Jesus' life and death split time? If you're talking about, I don't know what you might be talking about there. If you're talking about how we have before, like before Christ and Anno Domini, that is something that happens centuries later, like 5th, 6th century. You start to have people trying to reorganize the chronology according to the life of Jesus, but they were not incredibly accurate. And prior to that, a lot of time, you would have told time by, the 4th year of the reign of so-and-so, and you had regnal years and things like that. So if that's what you're talking about, then it's a lot of it's retroactive and not incredibly accurate. Did you have another idea about what he might be talking about here?
No, that's what I was assuming it was.
Okay.
Was just the before and after times. Was it Pope Gregory, or I mean, I know that Pope Gregory like did the whole calendar thing. Was he involved in the
I think there was a monk who did it. But it was around that time.
Those crafty monks.
And Dionysius Exigus, also known as Dennis the Small.
Yes.
Probably an exonym, I'm going to guess.
Go Dennis the Small. Saint Denis.
525 CE, so 6th century. So.
Oh, okay.
While trying to calculate the date of Easter, he devised the dating system. So,
okay.
And then we've got another question. Have you thought about talking with Sean McDowell about the authority of the Bible? I know Sean McDowell responded to a video of mine, and I have not watched all of it because if I recall, it's like an hour long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm not interested in watching that just to respond to 2.5 minutes of it. I don't know that Sean would be open to talking to me. I don't know that there would be an awful lot of value in that because I think I would be butting up against a rather obdurate wall of dogmatism. But like on principle, I don't have an objection to that. But I think there would be better candidates out there, people who I would be more willing to address. But if he came to me, I would have no objection.
I don't know. All I'm saying is you just threw down a gauntlet with that obdurate wall of dogmatism bit. You just that's some Drake Kendrick stuff right there.
No, we're not. I'm not going to get Kendrickian on anyone. Chizola, I apologize if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, but thank you so much for the question. Hey, Dan. Hello, I hope you've been doing well. Love your videos and work. Thank you so much for the kind words. Christians bring up Jesus' ability to forgive as a way of him saying he's God. I've made some Christians think about Luke 23:34. What are your thoughts on this? I'm going to have to look up Luke 23:34. But I've recently made a video about how Mark 2, which is where Jesus says, so that you might know the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. I say unto you, get up, take up your bed and walk. And which is Jesus forgiving sins. But yeah, I argue that it has nothing to do with him claiming to be God. Luke,
I mean, it's not like other. Okay. I read ability to forgive as just his ability to forgive people, but you're talking about his ability to forgive sin, and that's different. Because it doesn't seem like an ability to just forgive would be,
like most only God could forgive someone
only God
for hurting them. Yeah. No, yeah, I think this is talking about that because
That makes more sense. That makes more sense.
in Matthew 9 and in Mark 2, you have the Jesus's accusers are wondering in their hearts, who has authority to forgive sins except God alone. So Luke 23:34 says, and Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they cast lots to divide his garments. Yeah, that's, excuse me. Yeah, that's an interesting contribution to that debate. My concern was trying to leverage that for the discussion in Mark and the discussion in Matthew is that is not the author of Mark or the author of Matthew, is the author of Luke. So from a non-univocality point of view, I would consider that to be inadmissible evidence. But in terms of Luke, yeah, I think it suggests, at least for Luke, that Jesus is punting to God there to do the forgiveness work. Excuse me. But I just don't think that Jesus forgiving sins is an indication that he's God to begin with. And I've gone into detail about that. And in fact, yeah, I responded to Inspiring Philosophy, who decided to take issue with my video on that recently. So what's the number on that video? So if anyone would like to see my take on Jesus forgiving sins, it is number McClellan 2620, where I say, no, Mark 2 still doesn't say Jesus is God, and that's a response to Inspiring Philosophy. So yeah, hope that answers your question, and I think I've skipped over one accidentally. Jack, thank you so much for the question. What is the best case for the authenticity of the ascension of Isaiah? I don't think there's an incredibly good case for the authenticity of the ascension of Isaiah. I think it's pseudepigraphic. 2, did people thinking Jesus was Jeremiah indicate reincarnation belief? I don't know about reincarnation, but there was probably an idea that Jeremiah. You mean Elijah? Because I think the idea is typological, that he is coming in the spirit of Elijah or something like that. But Elijah also did not die. Elijah was taken up to heaven. And so it could be, they probably thought that Elijah was still in some sense alive, and so would return in a similar form or different form, which is not so much reincarnation as it is, what's the word?
Returning.
Returning.
Coming back.
But the metamorphosis idea, and not the Kafka one, but the Ovid one, where divine beings can change form and stuff like that. So I think it's closer to that than to any idea of reincarnation. But thank you for the question. And now to get to Jason Bueno's question. Thank you so much, Jason. Thoughts on Jesus being against the temple animal sacrifice system? I'm aware there's a documentary out there right now that's trying to argue Jesus was against the animal sacrifice system and was trying to advocate for, I don't know if it's saying vegetarianism or veganism or what, but yeah, I'm aware of that. I don't think there's a good case to make for that. And I think what little of that documentary I've watched was a little problematic in terms of some of the evidence it was adducing and also some of the way it was presented. Recommend the film Christspiracy. Yeah, that's the one. And book The Lost Religion of Jesus by Keith Akers. I don't know if I'm aware of The Lost Religion of Jesus. Keith Akers from 2000. Vegetarianism. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, from what I've seen of the argument, I don't think it is particularly strong. But thank you for the question. All right, Matthew 16:14. Hang on just a second. Let me. Oh, somebody was correcting me. I said, are you thinking of Elijah? And Matthew 16:14 says, some say thou art John the Baptist. Sorry, accidentally read from the King James Version there. Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. I don't know why they would mention Jeremiah. I don't think there's much of a. If there's a context for that, it is a very minority one that I am not even aware of. But I will have to look into that. In fact,
It does feel like an
write it
afterthought.
down.
Like Jeremiah in that list of people feels like an afterthought.
Yeah, because there's not a tradition of Jeremiah being like, "I'm coming back, everybody."
Jeremiah is like the Dennis Kucinich of that list of people. Like, you never had a shot, but okay.
Jonathan Cooper, thank you so much. VeggieTales in a movie, Jonah and the Whale. Have they made a VeggieTales one about Jonah and the Whale? I never watched VeggieTales.
I
so
have never seen a VeggieTales in my whole life.
Edward Ezianu, thank you so much for the question. Are God's omni, all traits, all powerful, all knowing, all loving actually in the Bible, or is that a concept created later in Christian history? I think you have some seeds of that in parts of the Bible. You also have some other parts of the Bible that directly contradict that, but the philosophical articulation of those traits is, yes, in a post-biblical development, and it took a while for that to develop. So omnipresence, omniscience, omnibenevolence, omnipotence, all those kinds of things are philosophical ideas that were primarily developed outside the Bible. Arthur, thank you so much. Hey guys, glad to catch live. Glad to be here live. And by the way, the reason we're here live is because we've got the book tour coming up, starting April 26th. We're going to hit Chicago, then Seattle, then Portland, then LA, and then we're going to come back a couple weeks later. The 17th through the 22nd probably is the window for the second leg, and we're going to hit Dallas and Atlanta and Philly and DC. So we've got information on that if you check earlier in the live in the chat as well. Got some links.
We'll toss the links back in there.
Okay.
All right. It's matter of fact, I'm looking it up right now. I'm going to do it.
Dan's going to take care of that. Question: why don't biblical scholars fight to remove the Pauline letters that are not written by him from the canon? And why did Dan B decide to do the show with you? Why biblical scholars don't fight to remove the Pauline letters? Some of them would suggest that they're not, some of them argue pretty strenuously that they're not authentic, but I mean, they're not going to get very far if they like try to publish a Bible that doesn't have the pseudo-Pauline letters. I just think they're not interested in trying to arrogate control of what is in and out of the Bible. I think most of them are just going to leave the Bible alone and let it be what it is, and just let people know, hey, just so you know, these were not written by, because I think that's tilting against windmills to some degree to try to say, shake your fist and say we need to get rid of those darn pastoral epistles.
Well, and we've seen what happens when they take one one verse that's probably not that shouldn't be in there out, and then boy, just people go ape crazy about it. So
yeah, and the story of the woman taken in adultery was not original. The last half of Mark 16, not original, but they don't take those out. They mainly just put them in double brackets and say, hey, these weren't a part of the original text. They were added in later. So yeah, that's just not the style of most biblical scholars. And biblical scholars are not always the same thing as Bible translators. So they don't really have a say when it comes to that for the most part. And why did Dan B decide to do the show with you? The money.
Oh yeah, because we are rolling in it.
Yeah,
we do okay. But the real question is, why did you decide to do a show with me? Because I'm sure a lot of people are think it's weird that you're doing a Bible show with an atheist instead of some other, I don't know. But I think I loved the concept. I mean, when we first started talking about it, the idea of a scholar and a not scholar who can just ask questions. I thought I think it's a good setup. I don't know. So
yeah,
And
Why
I was
not?
the only guy that you knew who does podcasts. So
Yeah, and
so when
and
the time
he's
came, I just slid in.
and he still has not turned me into a podcast listener.
No. I tried to make this guy listen to some podcasts. I was like, okay, let's craft our show. Let's figure out what it's going to look like. Let's try to listen to these 3 shows, a couple episodes each, and just see which format you like better. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I did countless hours of research for a dozen years to try and get all of the degrees that I've got, but I'm not willing to listen to a podcast.
The most podcast listening I think I've done is the short bits from Only Murders in the Building that they record as part of the podcast,
which are the worst. Like they're very obviously bad podcasting.
Yeah,
if that were the thing. So yeah.
Orsak Narrative Universe, thank you so much for the question. The breast talk reminded me of John Cobb saying El Shaddai references something like breasts and mountains and suggests something like God of the Grand Tetons. Thoughts? Shaddai, that is a legitimate scholarly position on the significance of the name El Shaddai, that it means El of the breasts or mountains, because it can refer to those. In fact, if we go to Genesis chapter 49, I want to say verse 24, but it might be verse 25. Yes, verse 25. We have, by the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty, which is Shaddai, who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts, and that in Hebrew is Shaddayim. That's the plural. And so Shaddai could be like my breasts, and blessings of the womb, Racham. So that is an actual theory. It could be El of the wilderness, could be El of the mountains, could be El of the breasts. So there are a few different scholars you can look at. Karl van der Toorn, I think, talks about that a bit. Frank Moore Cross probably talks about that a bit. I'm sure that Ted Lewis, in his book, The Origin and Character of God, he's got a section talking about the name El Shaddai. I'm sure he at least addresses that, but I don't think he agrees with that assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Man, you must go to bed early. Is this late for you? It is 8 o'clock, my friend.
There was a time when my bedtime was 8. And that's when I was getting up at 4. Because I had to be in the office to be chatting with people in like Pohnpei or or Yap, and I had to be up early for that one.
Yap is a place?
Yap is a place. There's an island. I've been to Yap, where they speak Yapese.
I love it.
It's a cool place. Like, it's not a huge place. It's a tiny little island. They've got crabs. Like when you're in kind of and now I forget what the trees are. What are the trees that kind of grow out of the water and the roots?
Mangroves?
It's kind of mangrove-y. But there are a lot of crabs that, like, you walk through and you just see these little crabs go and darting into their holes, and
cool.
And they
I'm looking it up. Yap is in Micronesia. Interesting.
It's one of the 4 states of the Federated States of Micronesia. Okay. You got Yap, you've got Khosrai, you've got Pohnpei, and you've got Chuuk. Yeah, but Yap has some. The Germans actually built some communication towers on Yap that you can still go visit to this day. They're pretty run down, but that was during the war. I thought I was going to die on Yap, as a matter of fact, because I went for a run the first day there. I'm in this nice little, there's the hotel, but they had a really nice restaurant that it's got a cool story. Like, Yap is a fascinating place. They even made a movie about Yap called His Majesty O'Keefe. Wow. And so they've got a little restaurant there called O'Keefe's, and O'Keefe was a British guy who came there and was like, you need to start, that's where the stone money is. The big stone money. Yeah. So But I went running one morning, and there are storms in Micronesian islands all the time, and so there's a lot of debris on the roads, the road. And I was running, and I stepped on a branch that had like 2-inch long thorns coming out
Oh,
of it, and one of them went right through my shoe, and I was like, ah! And fell over, and the branch was thoroughly, it was stuck to the bottom of my shoe, and I went back to my hotel, and I basically had my foot under boiling water, scrubbing it with soap for like 30 minutes, and I was like, because like there's not a flight to Guam to get to a hotel for like 3 days, so I was like, I have got to make it. But it like it wasn't, there was nothing poisonous about this thorn. There was nothing that happened, except it hurt a lot.
when you write your memoir and you're talking about that section of your life, will you title the chapter "I Thought I Was Going to Die on Yap"?
Try to squeeze that into my next book.
Death on Yap.
They because I love sneaking little things into my book, like the section titles of my book. Most of them are either lyrics or song titles. So and then I always apologize to the to the artists or the writers.
Right.
So like on one, when I'm talking about homosexuality in the Bible, one section is called "I'm Bringing Sexy Back," with apologies to Justin Timberlake. I've got some creative ones in there, but yeah. So I'll have to sneak something about Yap into there. I could do that quite easily. And there's one when I was doing the audiobook, I have to read the section titles, and so one section I read the section title, "Even Ezekiel thinks that my mind is gone," and then right after I said that, I was like, was that too sing-songy? Like, am I going to get in trouble on the audiobook? Because that's a line from Weird Al Yankovic's Amish Paradise. And I was like, did I say? And the director was like, I think you're probably all right. I was like, okay, from now on, I'm going to make sure I am not singing any of these.
I have made you appropriately paranoid about singing.
My first book. That was the problem with my first book. I had Taylor Swift lyrics in the intro, and they were like, nope, can't do that. It's like, what? What do you mean I can't do that? And they were like, it's so weird. They are very, very strict about writing song lyrics in books.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You can quote 100 different scholars, but you quote Taylor, and suddenly you're off to the races.
Yeah. Orsak Narrative Universe, thank you so much. Love Bluegrass. Ralph Stanley was a god or deity.
Sure. Divine. We'll just say it was divine.
Enkidu 5, thank you so much. Did you see the picture of the locust creature from Revelation 9 I sent you? I don't think so. I don't know what through what channel you sent it to me, but I don't see the overwhelming majority of the messages and even emails I get. So I will have to go see what I've been sent. But no, I don't think I've seen that. Tom, thanks so much for the question. How do you feel about Matt Dillahunty and his take on the Bible, Christianity, and religion in general? I don't know a ton about most of his takes. I've really only seen stuff from Matt when he's addressed some issue that I've been commenting on or something like that, and I don't really have many complaints. I can't, I nitpick here and there with things, but for the most part, I don't have trouble. I imagine, Dan, you might have more knowledge of Matt Dillahunty than I.
I mean, I've had dinner with Matt, but
okay.
The truth of the matter is that when I see him do stuff about the Bible, I'm me, so I don't know if he's right or wrong. I agree with him that it's like he and I are in agreement that there's no such thing as a God, but that's just our, atheist thing. So when you don't believe in a God, you don't believe that the Bible is a holy book or anything. But I assume that he's actually he's pretty well informed. That much I know. He has worked very hard to know a lot about the Bible and has studied, and I think studied to be a pastor
Mm-hmm.
originally, which is where he first started
Mm-hmm.
to learn about the Bible. And I think he went to college for that. And I don't know how far he got or whatever. So,
Okay, I did not know that.
yeah.
Is he? And he's a nice guy. Like a lot of the people who run in our circles, we spend most of the time our time that other people see being critical and sometimes even being pejorative and speaking down to other people. So sometimes we can kind of get an impression that somebody is not a very pleasant person to be around. But I don't know what he's like at all.
Every time I've sat in a room with the guy, he was very sweet to me.
Okay.
That's
Good to hear.
as far as I know.
Okay. And yeah, I don't really have much more knowledge than that. But thank you for the question. Jeffrey, thanks so much. Dr. McClellan, thanks so much for what you do. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Just wanted to tell you that had you been my Calvary Chapel youth minister 35-ish years ago, I'd probably still be in the faith. Thanks again. They probably would not have let me be your Calvary Chapel youth minister 35-ish years ago. But I appreciate the very kind words. And I get a surprising number of messages like that in the various channels if they make their way to me, folks who say they wish I had been around when they were growing up or when they were young adults in the faith or something like that, because it would have been nice to have a model of how a faithful person can also be critical. So that means a lot to me. I appreciate it. But yeah, I think they probably would have fired me right quick.
Sweet.
Too sweet indeed. Austin, thanks so much. Hi, Dan. Love your videos. Thank you, Austin. I appreciate that. I'm curious to know your thoughts about hermeneutics and semiotics as they relate to biblical interpretation. Both very relevant to biblical interpretation. These are kind of categories of a variety of different approaches. But semiotics, I've talked a bit about semiotics in my book, Adonai's Divine Images. I talk about semiotics a bit, particularly I think I'm kind of critiquing Peircean semiotics.
What is semiotics? I don't know what that is.
It's how things can represent meaning, symbolism, stuff like that. How you go from the sign to the signified, and those kinds of relationships and dynamics and stuff like that. I'm sure there's a shorter definition or description, but semiotics, the study of signs and symbols and their use or interpretation. There you go. So I think people need to be aware of what kind of hermeneutic lenses they're bringing to the Bible and what kind of semiotic assumptions they're making. I talk about it because I'm approaching things from a position of cognitive linguistics, and there's an awful lot within cognitive linguistics that is experimenting with how people make meaning with symbols, including language, with texts, with spoken language, with sign language, with Braille, with all that kind of stuff. So,
well, language is inherently symbolic, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's a degree to which all language is metaphorical. Yeah. There is no such thing as strictly literal language or speech. So yeah, semiotics, is relevant to all of that. And particularly, and I used it to talk about how divine images can index a deity or represent a deity, and how semiotics comes into play when we're thinking about how a divine image does or does not represent a deity, and in what sense it represents the deity. And my Hebrew instructor at Oxford was a guy named Steve Herring, and he wrote a wonderful book called Divine Substitution: Humanity as a Manifestation of Deity in the Primeval History, or is it just in the Hebrew Bible? I forget. But he goes into quite a bit of detail about semiotics. Another really good book that talks about semiotics is called... now I'm forgetting the name of the book.
Is it called the Da Vinci Code? I'm pretty sure that's
no, but a symbologist is basically what somebody who doesn't know anything about semiotics would. That's the title they would make up for somebody who did that. Oh gosh, why can't I think of the freaking name of that book? There's a very good book on semiotics and divine images as they relate to Mesopotamia that was pretty influential. But I can't remember it off. Is that it? Oh yeah, that's it. Zainab Barani, the graven image representation in Babylonia and Assyria from 2003 is a really good discussion
Cool.
of semiotics. And hopefully that answers your question without having to go too deep into to things. Chizola, thank you so much for the question. Some context to my previous question. Imagine a Pharisee / spectator of both Jesus forgiving sins earlier and the crucifixion. Luke 23:34, Jesus asked God to forgive. Seems contradictory if Jesus is God. Yeah, I don't think Jesus is represented as God anywhere in the New Testament. And also, Luke 23:34 is not in a lot of our earliest manuscripts. So a lot of Bible translations, they won't omit it, but they will bracket it and point out this probably isn't original. Mark, thanks so much for the question. What do you do with the escalating Christology of the Gospels coinciding with their assumed chronology? Why do most Christians adopt John's take? Because it's closest to what developed centuries later, and I think it makes sense that as we're moving along chronologically, that the people who decide to set pen to paper to record these Gospels are dealing with increasingly large collections of ideas about Christology that are being further refined and are further maturing and are they're dealing with the responses and the challenges and the implications to further develop Christology. So yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. But also, John is more philosophically minded. The others are not, and that has a lot to do with why John represents things the way the authors of John represents things. Trent, thanks so much for the question. What are your thoughts on Paul within Judaism? So this is a reference to kind of a movement within scholarship to kind of swing the pendulum away from like Paul within Hellenism to think of Paul more as Jewish. But I think it's these are distinctions without a difference. I think Paul was a Hellenized Jewish person, so it's kind of both of them. I think it's an important corrective. But it's also not the end of the road. And I would pretty much always punt to my friend Matt Thiessen when it comes to Paul within Judaism. We had him on the show, Dan, a bit ago to talk about his book on Paul as the herald to the Gentiles. So I think scholarship is kind of moving past that a little bit in different ways, but I'm not a specialist in Pauline studies, so I am looking in from the outside and not judging to the degree I can avoid judging. All right, I'm going to have to go here in a couple of minutes, so thank you for everybody who's been in the chat and is posting questions.
Now, Dan, I was not able because YouTube wouldn't let me log into my YouTube thing. I couldn't post the link to our tour back into the chat. So if you'll do that,
I'll do that.
Would be great. So just to remind everybody what that is it's the Data Over Dogma tour. We're going to Chicago, Seattle, Portland, and Los Angeles, and then after that, and that's what the link will be to, is that first and it's in the chat now, that first leg of the tour. The second leg will be coming out soon. Dan, you and I should probably do another live when we've got that up and running.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that will be going to Dallas, Atlanta, Philly, and DC. So if you're in any of those areas or even near, oh look, Mark in the chat's going to be in Seattle, and awesome. Yes, we're going to be in Dallas. So yeah, take a road trip. Come and check us out, and encourage your friends to buy tickets, because we're nervous about paying for this thing.
And if we can show the publisher that this is a success with the next book. And I have the proposals going to go to the publisher probably in June. So I'm already going to be working on the next book pretty soon. But if we can show them that there's an interest in this, they will take care of the publicity next time around. And so we won't have to. The tickets will be cheaper basically, because we will not be funding everything ourselves and lugging speakers through through airports and train stations. So
and I will be cordially not invited. So that'll be the other side of it.
and hopefully it can expand to the UK and to Canada and elsewhere, which will be really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dan, for joining me. I appreciate it. When we will do a dry run to figure out how to get the accounts working right. But I think it still worked just fine.
Yeah, this is great. And thanks everybody. And listen to the Data Over Dogma show, or check it out here on the YouTubes.
Yep. You can. I don't know why you would want to watch us, but if you want to watch us, you can. Most folks will say, we'll just listen to you.
I'll just have you on 2 times speed while I'm on the run.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your support. Appreciate your interest in these topics, and we will see you around.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.